Hi, my name is Maxine. I'm going to give my testimony, and I want to tell you why I came to be in Reading. My husband was an engineer, and we came through here one of his between someone in the summer times, and when he saw Reading, saw the lake, he said, "This is where I want to be when I graduate." So he already had a job before he even graduated. So we came to Reading in 1952, and since we had attended church when he was in college, we looked for a church, and we visited quite a few churches, but we didn't find one that really met our needs. But he had a co-worker that attended First Baptist Church, and so he invited us to go to church with them. And from then on, we never went to any other church. That was our church. And I was not a Christian then. I knew I wasn't. And one night I had a dream, and it was so vivid, I thought Jesus was coming. And I was scared to death. And so the next day, when the altar call was given, my friends tell me I literally ran down the aisle. I just couldn't wait, because in that dream, Jesus was coming. And I knew that I didn't know him, and I wasn't ready. So I went forward, but I just had so many questions and so many doubts that I know I was saved then, but I felt like that I didn't know him well enough to be baptized. I wanted time to think about it. So it was a couple of years later before I finally was baptized, and by that time we had a new home and we had a little daughter, and life was good. It was a happy time for me, and that went along. My husband finally became a Christian and joined the church, and then in 1972 we had just taken our youngest daughter to college in Chico, and he came home and packed up and left. So I was all alone for the first time in my life, and I was devastated. If I had not been a Christian, I would have gone down to the river and drowned. I thought I had nothing to live for. But I still knew that God didn't want me to do that. I didn't believe that Christians should commit suicide, and I was in my right mind. So I just struggled along with it, and God had plans for me, as he always does. And a couple of years later, Howard came into my life, and he had been my girls' fourth grade teacher, their favorite teacher. And since I didn't work in those days, I used to go over and help with hot dogs and help with PTA, and so I just would visit with him because he came from Washington, and his folks lived close to where my folks lived and where I finished my last 5 years. So we dated for a while, and then finally in June of 1975, we were married here in this chapel, and I gotta look down at my notes now. Okay, and he brought 4 grown children into the marriage and one 12-year-old daughter, and of course my girls were grown up and gone then, and so we had a wonderful time together. His children became like my own children. They still are to this day. And life was good. We built a cabin up at Lake Nippercumber. We bought a travel trailer. We visited almost all the states, including Alaska and Hawaii. Life was so good. And then in 2008, he was diagnosed with cancer. And so after 25 radiation treatments in Sacramento, and then a little rest in between, and then he had surgery on September the 9th, 2008. And he was in the hospital until the end of November. This surgery looked good at first, but something went wrong, and he never was able to come home. And finally, in the end of November, they transferred him up to rehab place here in Reading. And he was there for about a month, and they couldn't do anything for him, so they sent him to Mercy, and they kept him for a couple of weeks, and then they finally told me that there wasn't anything else they could do for him, and I either had to put him in a nursing home or I could take him home with hospices. Well, I was not going to put him in a nursing home, so with his children's help, we brought him home, and I couldn't have done it without God's help, and I couldn't have done it without my stepsons. They took turns sleeping on a cot by his bed, hospital bed, every night. I never had to stay by myself at night. And that's when my church family really came forth, and I don't know what I would have done without them. So he passed away on January the 28th, 2009. And But while he was in Davis, I could only go down on weekends because I was still working. And one Saturday night, I came home, and it was been a hard day for Howard, and I thought he was dying, and I was so disturbed, and I just lost it. And I just got down on my knees, and I sobbed. And it was, I think the next day or within a couple of days, the Lord gave me this verse that has been my standby. And it's Nehemiah 18. The joy of the Lord is my strength. And truly he is. I couldn't have made it without him. So I've been alone now for the last 10 years, but I'm not alone because I have Jesus, and I have my wonderful kids, and I have my church family. So I just am content with life. I'm lonely sometimes, but not really. I'm just happy to be alive and trying to witness and do the best that I can. At his funeral, as a memorial service, I was able to speak, and only because the Lord allowed me to. And I've been involved in activities at the choir until recently, and I used to serve on the board. I've had a lot of positions in the church, but I think the greatest joy that I get now is just from being available for whatever he has for me to do. And since Pastor Heath has came into this church, into my life, the Bible has just become alive to me. I love his word, and he makes it so plain. And at 90 and a half years old, I know I don't have much time left, but as long as I can be useful, I'm wanting to live, and I just praise him every day, and I just want to share with you what an experience it is to walk with him. It just gives purpose and meaning to life. And I just think that with what is happening in our world today, that time is running short. I think God is trying to get our attention, and we better listen, because we better make sure that we know where we're going when we leave this old world. And I just pray that that you will, if you haven't had your moment with Jesus, that you will. You'll never regret it, and it'll make your life so much. It gives purpose and meaning to your life. My prayer every day is that I'll be a blessing to someone, and the Lord has enabled me to memorize many, many, many verses. And I pray those when I'm walking in the morning. And I just feel his presence, and I just know that there's nothing that I can't do without God's help. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I just pray that this testimony will encourage someone to make the biggest decision they'll ever make in their life. Thank you for this opportunity to give my testimony, and I hope that I have been a blessing to someone. Thank you so much. Goodbye.